Just having sexual intimacy in marriage doesn't mean that the trust is there. It doesn't mean the love is there. It can certainly feel empty. It can feel like your whole person is not connecting. And it's like, oh, wait, is that what I waited for? Hi, I'm Mary, certified relationship coach, Christian sex educator, empty nester, and happy jet skiing wife who believes God's design for sex in marriage is too good to stay quiet about.
And I'm Katieann, senior pastor, wife, mom to 4 kiddos, and I always love having some fun, even when we're diving into the deep and holy conversations about marriage and sex.
So, welcome to the Sexual Wholeness Revival Podcast. Hi, everybody. We are so glad to have you join us on the Sexual Wholeness Revival Podcast. Kind of a fun topic today. Think about one of those old shows of what not to wear. I am going to tell a story on myself, what not to do on a date. And as I've told some of my personal story, I was previously married and then single for 5 years, and then now happily remarried over 11 years. Woohoo. But during those 5 years of dating as a mid-aged woman, it was scary. And God was redefining me. Wonderful experience. But sometimes I over spiritualize things, and I would meet a Christian guy online and build this whole persona in my head of who he was and what our life was going to be like. I mean, it was like I was 16 all over again, and I was embarrassed that I was doing it, but I was just learning. And I'll never forget, one of my biggest bloopers was meeting a guy online, and he was out of town, but he said he was moving to Jacksonville. And I'm just feeling the cringe come on me right now. Like, oh my gosh, did you fall for that? So literally, I picked him up from the airport to drive him to his
Oh no.
hotel. And thankfully, he did look like his picture, so at least that wasn't overwhelmingly off. But we were just too close too fast. And I was completely safe, so I thank God for that as well. But I had just built up this idea in my head. And even when he said things that were yellow flags or a hinge of red flags there, I just would excuse it in my mind. And, oh, but I know he loves God, and I know that he wants a godly wife. And so it put me at risk because I didn't know how to take the time. I didn't know how to really trust God and to vet him, to put him through a list of questions in the most respectful way, just checking for character and not just the things that he said that were spiritually pleasing to my ears, but to follow who he really was as a person and what his values were. And nothing negative about this man. I'm telling the story on me and what I had to learn along the way. So we're going to do some of that today. We're going to unpack some things that are really helpful to know about dating and being able to build trust before you have deep levels of intimacy. We're also going to unpack what happens if you didn't have a level of trust in your dating life and you jumped into intimacy really quick. How can we go back and reclaim some of that ground? So we're going to start at the beginning. Katieann, my question for you: why is it a trend to get caught up in the feelings and the rush of a new dating relationship and dive deep too soon?
Such a great question. I think that there's a couple things that play into that. One, the way relationships are romanticized in culture around us. It's all about the woo-woo feeling, and it doesn't emphasize the importance of the relational depth, the emotional depth that is needed for sustaining relationships. And so it is heavily romanticized. You see that person across the across the cafe, and you have a rush of feeling and you can't take your eyes off of them. And so we've been taught in culture that means you go quickly, you end up jumping the gun when there isn't a relational, emotional longevity or depth there. And I think it gets a little confusing too in Christian culture as well. We are created, the way God designed us is created for closeness, intimacy.
Yeah.
We are created we want to feel valued. We want to be cherished. We want someone in our corner. We want to be able to come home to somebody, go to sleep, fall asleep next to somebody, wake up, have shared experiences with. We're created for that. We're created for intimacy. We're created for that. And I think in Christian culture too, is we emphasize the God card, if you will. People go, God told me. And although there are leadings and there are instances, I think that is really important that we're well equipped to still make a powerful relational choice. God still gave us a free will to choose someone or not choose someone. And this comes from a little bit of experience too. My husband and I, we dated 2 weeks. He said he really liked me. I didn't think I liked him. And so I thought I would say, prove it. And he said, okay. And so he proposed to me, and we were engaged for 4 months, but now we are looking at almost 21 years of marriage. And, it's a crazy story. It's not a story I recommend for others, but through these 21 years, the importance of that relational depth, just the depth of our relational connection beyond the physical, beyond just doing life together, has really grown because we choose each other. I choose you is such an important first step. And oftentimes we get into positions where we go, I just have all of these feelings. And then when the feelings fade, we're left confused because we didn't build any relational depth outside of those feelings. Right, and so it really does do more harm. It can do more harm than good in those situations.
I agree.
Yeah. So knowing trust is such an important part of intimacy. Mary, can you tell me what happens when your trust and intimacy levels aren't synced? Because that's also common.
Yes, and at that scenario where you're diving in and you have more intimacy, and usually it's the physical intimacy, but it could be emotional, just too much too soon, then you have this emotional attachment, and it's based on emotions. It's not based on giving time to see the character, of the other person, letting them prove who they are, even what their values are. You can feel a pressure to maintain the closeness that it's like, well, we were at this level. Can we pull back? And you feel the need to just keep going with it. And when you are heavy into a physical relationship, then it's really difficult to recognize the red flags. You're having the charges, the releases of hormones that propel you back to another physical, sexually charged encounter. And that just is a cycle that takes you out of your logic, probably takes you out of your spiritual self checking in with God. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous to get so deep so quickly and just assume that you're in complete agreement, because maybe you're agreeing that these emotions are fun, but you're not taking the time to agree on really important foundational things. So I say that when intimacy grows faster than trust, it creates vulnerability and confusion. And that's not how you want a relationship to grow. Without trust, that intimacy becomes exposure. instead of connection. And when you've gone too far and you are feeling exposed, I mean, maybe they pulled back, maybe you're starting to see some real signs of who they are, then you're like, oh, I just feel uncovered. I feel awkward. I feel at that place right there that you are exposed, and it's really difficult to back up and go, wait. I think we went too far. Can we talk about this and set some new boundaries and figure out what would be good boundaries in the dating relationship?
Yeah, so good.
And talking about dating, because I know, Katieann, you have kids at this age, what would you suggest as far as setting the right pace in dating?
Yeah, I think that is such an important question. And it's such an important question to teach our kids too, as they're learning all of these things. And, you just mentioned the importance of character and building trust. And I think it's really important as you are even learning to date, like, that you are making the priority. I want to know your character. I want to know how are we building trust together. And so I think that there are definitely ways to build trust before intimacy that are very important. One is kind of a level one, and it's all about interest and life stories. Or do you have similar interests? It's okay if not all of your interests are the same, but it is important to have, interests and to know each other's life stories. Like, how did you get to this point? And when you're in your late teens and early 20s, some of those things kind of get overlooked because the rush of all the feelings. But this is just one way to start understanding who somebody is, understanding their character, and what level of trust that they are capable. Level two would be values and beliefs. Do you have the same core beliefs? Are your beliefs around faith similar? Because let me tell you, if they're not, if you're coming from two different denominations, I'm not saying that it can't work or it never works, but there needs to be some pretty hearty conversations around those values and beliefs. Otherwise, next thing you know, you're married, you have kids, and you have very different beliefs, and now you're trying to raise children and you've never had these conversations. Level 3, I think part of the building of trust is to also be able to share your personal struggles. Like, what are you struggling with? And I think that when there is a level of trust, you can get into what your personal struggles are a little bit easier because you have that trust built.
Yeah.
Level 4 is the deeper emotional experiences. And this one is just really neat to me because, like I said, my husband and I have been married we've been together almost 21 years now. And what has really happened is that we did the hard stuff. We went to counseling, we read the books, we went to the seminars, we had the hard conversations. And what happened is it created deeper emotional experiences together that builds intimacy in a way that can only happen through the deeper emotional experiences. And then a level 5 would be more sexual intimacy, which is reserved for marriage, covenant relationship. I remember when my husband and I, again, our relationship went really fast. Don't recommend that. However, we have a really awesome, messy story, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I remember I worked at a secular job, and the gals that I worked with, one of them was very concerned about me because she said, "You said yes to marrying him without having sex with him. How do you know you're compatible? And what happens if you get married and you find out you're not compatible?" And so there is pressure from worldly culture to do things in a different order than what is biblical. And so I think it's really important when you have all of these layers of trust and experiences that build on top of each other, the sexual intimacy part, it happens differently because you have trust and you have communication that the world doesn't have or values even.
Yeah, you really have to wait on that physical
Yeah.
intimacy until the trust is there to support it. And then as God planned for it to happen in marriage, then that place of safety is there. And so it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And physical closeness accelerates bonding. And so you don't want to be bonding with someone who maybe has some things in their character that are a concern of you. That is something that needs to be taken in consideration as you are traveling down the road of dating.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, what if you didn't prioritize? Because this happens, right? This happens. What if you didn't prioritize trust in dating, and how can it show up in married intimacy?
Right. So this is a little bit of the heavy part of our talk today, but what culture tells us about marriage is that sex equals love. And that is not true. But if you've gotten married and you're having sex, which we hope that you are in your marriage, but just having sexual intimacy in marriage doesn't mean that the trust is there. It doesn't mean the love is there. Can certainly feel empty. It can feel like your whole person is not connecting, and it's like, oh, wait, is that what I waited for? Also, there's a cultural message that a spouse should always be available for sex. And that just completely eliminates the mutual consent portion, which just because you're married doesn't mean every time you want to have sex, you're going to have sex. There's two of you, and we have to always plan for that. Marriage does not automatically create intimacy.
Right.
It could be very quickly two people co-living. They have companionship, they live side by side, maybe even ships passing in the night, so to speak, schedules just sort of mirroring one another. But that is not the ideal design, and we don't want anyone to have a less than experience from what God designed. So our prompt is to make sure that intimacy includes trust. And because without it, you could feel pressure in regards to sex. Without it, that resentment could start to grow. There can be emotional withdrawal. Hey, I've heard so many wives say, he just wants me for my body. I don't want to be there for him. And there can be confusion about desire. We did an entire episode distinguishing between desires and needs. And we've also talked about desire discrepancy of different sex drives. And they change. They change all throughout your marriage.
Right.
So all of these issues are going on, but without the trust, then it's so difficult to talk about. And it may feel really strange. Oh, do we have to go reclaim something that we did not have at the beginning? And even that can feel a little awkward to think about.
Yeah, which I mean, in your marriage, if this has happened, what would you recommend, or how would you encourage people to reset the focus on trust?
Yeah, I've got a few steps here that I want to unpack. And the first one is the scariest one, because this is the one where you go, stop, press pause. We have to just slow down and acknowledge there's a gap here. Yeah. I know we're married. I know we're having sex. I know I love you, but something is missing. And it's so hard to put my finger on it. And I don't feel safe. It's like, I don't think you're going to hit me. It's not that kind of not feeling safe, but it's just the connection is not where I wanted it to be, where I hoped it would be. And I want what's missing. I want to feel like I can trust you. And just having sexual activity is not the same thing as emotional safety. A second step would be building emotional trust. And as I said, it may feel like you're backpedaling, going backwards to try to reestablish it, but it's so important and it will change everything. So this can be really simple practices, having those conversations without a sexual expectation. What does that mean? You are talking through some of the issues, some of the ways that you feel about your relationship, knowing that you don't immediately have to go have sex to what has been said or to validate the relationship. You can just kind of ease off, maybe even agree to press pause on how many times you are sexually active with each other. Also, sharing feelings without trying to fix them. Oh, this happens so much. Sharing feelings is difficult, and when it comes out, if you're uncomfortable, then you just want to make that go away and let's find solutions. And that may not be the helpful thing. That may not be the thing that builds connection. And here's something that is a learning curve, but that is to respond with curiosity instead of criticism. So, what did you mean when you said that? Yeah. Can you tell me more about that? I don't understand it. Can you explain it a different way? So you want to continue to open up the conversation and making sure that both of you feel safe to do that. I have just a couple more steps here. Step 3, remove pressure around sex, which I hinted at before. We know that healthy intimacy grows when both spouses know that their no will be respected.
So important.
And that their comfort matters and that desire is invited but not required.
Right.
So it's a mind shift here to go, oh, even though we've done things a certain way up to this point, it hasn't been emotionally satisfying. Maybe physically there's been some pleasure there, but it's not where you hoped your relationship would be. Being able to step back and assess and be brave to say we want to try things a little differently. That would be so helpful. And then one last step here is to reconnect intimacy to covenant.
Yes.
Now, a lot of the things that happen with our sex life, they're the typical expressions. We've talked about the rush of emotions and just getting caught up. And our hormones are firing in our body regardless of whether or not you're a Christian. But we are talking to Christian couples here. So when you know that God designed sexual intimacy and marriage to be sacred, it changes what your perspective will be. We want a covenant idea of we're caring for one another. We don't have a checklist with expectations, but it's this safe place. So there's mutual giving to each other, and there's mutual enjoyment. So if it does not feel like mutual giving and mutual enjoyment, that is a good time for you to stop and address things and figure out what's going on. We should have intimacy growing at the speed of your trust.
Yes, I love that. So, so important.
Any other thoughts on that, Katieann? Because I know I just was kind of running through it there.
I mean, it's just that trust piece, is so important. We idolize going on coffee dates and, having these big moments in the rush of feelings emotionally and physically in our bodies, and the reality is so oftentimes the foundation of trust isn't there. And when the storms of life come your way, it's very revealing of where the trust is at. And trust is so important, but trust can't happen without the exchange of truth. And so we keep
Yes.
going back to what is mutual respect. You can't have mutual respect or mutual consent without being able to tell the truth. And you can't trust without telling the truth, and they're all so connected, and I just the impact that it has on the intimacy side, and so everyone who's in the dating world, who is looking at the dating apps, to me it's like, do you, if you use dating apps, if you are in a singles group, whatever it is, but just the intimacy should grow at the speed of trust. And covenant is God's design. Like, if you could just get this into you as you go into that hangout spot, whatever it is, that intimacy should grow at the speed of trust. I think that you are going to set yourself up for success, not perfection, but you are going to set yourself up for success. And we don't want to be blind to the red flags in relationship and that character. We want to be people of character who are also in relationship with someone of character as well. So
Amen.
All of these things are so important, Mary, and I so appreciate your wisdom on all of this.
If you find yourself, whether you're dating or you're married, and you realize there's a trust issue and maybe things have gotten too involved sexually and physical intimacy there, and you want some support to think it through, to talk it out, to come up with a plan, then I would invite you to have a relationship breakthrough session with me. I offer a consultation to see if coaching together would be a good fit. But these ideas around issues regarding sex, not everyone is comfortable talking about, and it's something that God has just put on my heart. And I do have professional training as well as personal experience to bring truth to the situation. So if you're interested, I will put the link in the show notes, and you can book a relationship breakthrough session, and we will find out what your next best step would be.
Yeah. And until next time, let's bring back wholeness.